So NSAI is incredible in the fact that our whole mission is based around advocating, educating, elevating, and celebrating songwriters through and through. It's not just our membership services and benefits and workshops. It's the staff Jill has built here. Our membership team is incredible. There's a energy in this building that I think carries out, because when you have 100 chapters worldwide, it's not just Nashville. It might be Nashville Songwriters Association. It's also international.
Welcome to the Songwriting Chronicles, a podcast about, you guessed it, songwriting. Join me, your host, Sundi Joe, as I take you on a journey through the world of songwriting, where I'm going to share my personal experiences as a songwriter, interview other songwriters and industry pros, provide valuable tips, tools, and tricks to help you achieve your songwriting goals. I am super excited about today's guest, so let's just get to it. She serves as the Director of Chapters for the Nashville Songwriters Association International, say that 3 times fast, or as you might know it, NSAI. Soon after moving to Nashville, she signed her first publishing deal as a songwriter with Leslie DiPerio and Victoria Shaw. And from there, she's had success with film, TV placements, several album cuts, a couple singles. She's also a co-writer on Chase Rice's song, Jack Daniels and Jesus, from Rice's Ignite the Night album that debuted at #1 on the Billboard Top Country Albums. She went on to become a staff writer for Sony ATV and Wide Open Music Group. While at Wide Open, she served a dual role as songwriter and creative director, discovering a new love for music on the business side of the music business. While there, she began curating special networking events such as Hits and Giggles and Workin' Women's Wednesday, embracing all creatives in town, combining new-to-town dreamers with seasoned Music Row veterans. First of all, she is the queen of coming up with creative titles. Love it. She does all kinds of things I serve as an NSAI coordinator. And when she's coming up with, she calls us her chapter chickens, if that tells you anything, all the chapter coordinators. So she's so creative. I just love her. Her enthusiasm combined with her grit and grace approach towards songs and the ones that write them have continued to launch her into what is proving to be a successful impact and career in Music City. And that is the truth, my friend. Amanda Flynn Phillips is a rock star, and I am so honored to call her friend, and I have no doubt that you will be just as blessed as I am by the end of this episode. Before we dive in, though, I'd love to ask for a favor. If you are enjoying the Songwriting Chronicles, please let us know. Leave a comment, like, share, all the things. That helps us stay visible in this crazy world full of podcasts, and we can't do it without you. So I've been a member of NSAI for a few years now, and I've had the opportunity of being a chapter coordinator, like I said, for both the St. Louis chapter and now the Southern Missouri chapter. Shout out to my former St. Louis coordinator, Kathy K. Wallace, love her, and my current Southern Missouri coordinator, Adam Carpenter. So the Nashville Songwriters Association International, like I said earlier, NSAI, is the world's largest not-for-profit songwriters trade association. And we're going to get into how NSAI serves you as a songwriter in a little bit. But established in 1967, the membership of more than 5,000 active and professional members spans the United States and foreign countries. And NSAI is dedicated to protecting the rights of and serving aspiring and professional songwriters in all genres of music. And like I said earlier, Amanda is a rock star at keeping our NSAI chapters running smoothly and keeping coordinators like myself in line, but also inspired to keep pushing forward as leaders. So without further ado, let's dive into today's episode with the amazing Amanda Flynn Phillips. All right, Amanda, thanks for joining us today. I'm glad to make it here. It's taken us a minute to get here, and I'm glad we're finally here.
Thank you for being flexible.
And I'm digging that mic. I've still got to get one.
Man, $9, Amazon. I bought it as a joke and then found out it worked.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Well, so I've got like 1,000 nice things to say about you, but I won't make your head like real big, but I'm sure it'll all come out.
You can say them all. We have time.
I'm sure it'll all come out in this interview today, but first question I want to ask is what what made you want to be in the songwriting world when you grew up? First of all, we know you're not grown up because neither am I, and that's probably why we get along so well. But what made you want to be a songwriter when you grew up?
Growing up, I loved music. I always did. I was obsessed with Reba, and country music specifically. And we would drive a lot to go see my family. So, there was always cassettes or the radio on. And I loved music. I loved what they said. And I would take the cassettes and open like the liner notes. And I would see these names in little font. And I was like, what are those? And my cousin Tammy, who's a songwriter, she's like, those are songwriters. And it was kind of my introduction to it. And she was one. So she was like, yeah, that means they wrote the song. And so she played me songs she had written. And I was just hooked. I thought that was the coolest thing. I thought she was the coolest thing. She still is. Back then, it's funny because I was good with words and I loved puns and rhymes and things like that. And I was always creative. But I'd never tried to write a song until Tammy had told me that she did. So I was like, well, if she did, I want to try it. Mm-hmm. So she had played me a song and I rewrote the hook, which now I know that's not really a great thing to do. But I was 7, so I didn't know. And
you don't know what you don't know.
Right. And so I rewrote it and I played it for her. She was like, that's really good. And she wasn't like, you don't do that.
Right.
But she just continued to make it fun and like a kind of like a worksheet or like a homework. And so when we would get together and stuff, we'd eat brownies and cream soda and talk about songs or listen to songs. And she loved showing me new music. And so that's really where it kind of began. And I fell in love with album cuts versus singles, which I still pretty much that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, and then it was really just something her and my mom knew I did. And I didn't really tell anyone because I'm not a good singer and I'm not a good player. And I don't have the patience to work hard at either one of them. But I like writing.
You know your talents, right?
It's good to know what you're good at. It's also good to know what you're not.
Side note, and a squirrel, which we'll probably see a lot of those during this interview. Mm-hmm. But first of all, you're the queen of puns. Second of all, you mentioned Reba. She's coming out with a new sitcom. Did you see that?
I did. I'm very excited.
I am very excited as well.
And I know people compare her a lot to to Lucille Ball, but she kind of is like Betty White passed, and we don't have a lot of funny icons. I mean, Kelly Clarkson is getting there for me. I'm loving every moment of her. Mm-hmm. But you have Kelly and Reba and Dolly, so I think a new sitcom is needed now. If only she could like join forces with Tim Allen.
That would be amazing.
Right. Yes. And then Jonathan Taylor Thomas walks in and everyone laughs.
Right. I love it. They didn't call me to audition for the show yet, but I'm still waiting.
I would probably give it until spring.
Okay. Good to know. I'll wait on that. So how did you, let's talk about NSAI for a second. How did you first become involved with NSAI and what inspired you to work specifically in the songwriting industry?
Well, it was actually Jill Moody, our director of membership, brought it to my attention. I wrote professionally for 10 years. I'd had different publishing deals. When I was at one of my publishing deals, they'd asked if I was interested in being a creative director because I did love the business side of it. And I love, for better lack of terms, it's like a matchmaking. I loved writing with writers and meeting writers and being like, ooh, you'd hit it off with this person really well. Or, ooh, that song sounds really cool. I bet if you collaborated with this person, it could even be bigger or better. And I just naturally gravitated to that. But in Nashville, especially in the last decade, that's a little odd to be business and creative. Mm-hmm. So I was just always torn. I thought I had to be one or the other. And then after my last publishing deal, I was like, you know what? Maybe health insurance isn't overrated. And so I took a job at Acme Feed and Seed doing private event sales and working with their really cool creative team and event staff, and was still kind of in the vein of what I like to do, but I missed my Music Row people. Got furloughed from there, worked at the Opry, love the Opry. I still, which wall is it? They made that for me before I left. I talked to someone from the Opry every week.
I can't show you it because you won't see it, but I have a Minnie Pearl album on my wall.
I love her.
I knew we were meant to be friends. I knew it.
She's my fave. But yeah, I was at the Opry. Love the Opry. Love the staff there. But again, it was that like I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing because I'm paying my bills and I'm loving it, but there's still some kind of like, like when you spray paint and you're done and the little bead is in the can and it's still rattling. I felt like I was using everything, but there was still that rattle that I was like, I'm a little empty. There's something. And so I just thought I was an unsatisfied child that never would be fully happy. And then long story medium, I guess, is Betty White died. I saw, and you've already heard this, but your podcast people haven't. She passed away. When they did an interview with Tracy Morgan, they said, what do you think what do you think God said to Betty White when she got into heaven? And Tracy, without a skip and a beat, just said, I think God looked at her and said, thank you for using everything I gave you. And that clicked something. So on my morning prayer, I just kind of incorporated that. Like, God, let me use everything you gave me. I don't know how that's possible, but like not to, you know what I mean? Like
I
the
got
writing of the songs, the loving of the songs, the being an advocate, the shouting my friends' songs from the rooftops, like that kind of thing, the mentoring. I didn't know how that could culminate. And then Jill called about this job and I was like, no, thank you. I appreciate it. I'll help you find someone. And she was like, oh, okay. Because in my head, I was like, just stick it out. Like you'll figure it out. Not realizing that. And then literally midday, I was praying the same prayer and she called and she was like, listen, let's talk about this position. And I was like, I am a mediumly successful songwriter. What on earth would NSAI want with me? Like, and she goes, a lot. And she got it before I got it. And so I interviewed with her and Bart. I decided to take it. And it was one of those things that I was like, I'll give it 3 months. We'll see. I'll give it 3 months. I love NSAI's mission. I love what they're about. I'm obsessed with Jill. We knew each other years back and had said we always wanted to work together. So I was like, this will be a cool opportunity. And it was probably like 2 weeks in. I was like, oh, I'm a writer. I've had some mild success. I love people. I love songwriters. I can champion them. I'm behind the scenes, but I can still write. Instead of it being a conflict, it was a compliment.
I love that. Yeah.
And I mean, that's just proof of God answering a prayer better than what you want for yourself,
Yeah, he's good at that.
I know, and it's so sneaky.
Yes, he can be that way.
Well, and it was one of those, literally, like, I was driving on the interstate when she called, and I was just like, I love me some Jill, and I wanted to work with Jill, but I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't want, and truthfully, I mean, being very vulnerable and honest, it was one of those, I don't want to try and fail at something. I don't want to do something else for 2 years, be really good at it, and then something else like happen or like burnout, or I want a long-term thing, and I wasn't sure what it was, and then apparently it's this.
I think every strong writer has to struggle with that at some point of like, I don't want to try and fail. I mean, because it's vulnerability, because people are going to reject your songs. I mean, that's just how it goes.
I take rejection well. I got really good at that.
Well, I mean, if you, as a songwriter, like if you don't take rejection well, you're in the wrong business.
Right. And like, I can honestly say I had fantastic female mentors. Like my first publishing deal was Leslie DePiro and Victoria Shaw. Their love languages are both very different, but they were both very connected and very nurturing in their own ways to help me acclimate in the industry to where I knew what I was doing. How to carry yourself, how to, conduct yourself in a co-write, how to connect with others, how to do your date of creation. So, it was kind of, they gave me these little nuggets that I carried through. And then I realized, like, as my career went on as a songwriter, not everybody had a Leslie and Victoria.
Right.
And and that broke my heart, because I was like, I want everyone to have that experience. Like, how do you do this in a world where you don't have a genuine champion?
Right. Right.
And so that was kind of the other reason that I was like, well, if this is that opportunity where I get to be someone's, Aunt Leslie, then let's roll.
Yeah, I love that. Well, and just like those small things that you said, songwriters don't know that, especially when they're starting out. And so, I mean, what an opportunity just as an NSAI coordinator to take that back to our chapter to teach them
Mhm.
small things like that. And so, that keeps paying it forward, really. And that's just like this podcast. I was like, why would I start another songwriting podcast? Why would I do that? But nobody does it like I do it. Nobody does it like you do it. And I think that's important for songwriters to know as well.
And I think as creatives, we're all a little hyper self-critical, and we're all, well, no matter how confident we can be, there's always that like, well, why would anyone care? Why would anyone
Mhm.
listen?
Right.
Because when there is that rejection, it's like, oh, of course.
Right.
But with a little therapy and just like gaining some ground and self work and in your craft, that kind of, it doesn't, for me at least, it hasn't completely gone away, but it's much easier to quiet those voices to be like, why not me? Like,
Right.
why? If I know, and also like being responsible for over 200 coordinators around the world, I find great joy and responsibility in that.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to let you all down, which means I won't let myself down. So,
Right.
it's kind of like an accountability by proxy.
Yeah. 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 Makes sense. That's a great way to put that. So in the intro, I talked a little bit about NSAI, but explain a little bit more the mission, the goals of NSAI, particularly in relation to supporting songwriters.
So, NSAI is incredible in the fact that our whole mission is based around advocating, educating, elevating, and celebrating songwriters through and through. Um, it's not just our membership services and benefits and workshops. It's the staff Jill has built here. Our membership team is incredible. There's a energy in this building that I think carries out, because when you have 100 chapters worldwide, it's not just Nashville. It might be Nashville Songwriters Association. It's also international.
Right.
So making sure that carries over. Um, I went to DC recently with Bart and Jen. I have never been so uncomfortable before a trip in my entire life. Uh, I was like, how do I look like a songwriter, but also like business casual, but like I care, but like I don't. And it was during the Speaker of the House, and so I don't. I'm not. I don't do politics.
Right.
So I was like, I'm going to DC during a time when there's going to be lots of men in suits yelling at each other. I'm going to be in uncomfortable shoes, and like I had this permanent like splotch on my neck. It could not have been more opposite. We had 43 meetings in 3 days, and
Wow.
we were doing a testimony with Jamie Moore and Parker Welling, the songwriters, and Bart and Jen, and 3 congressmen were supposed to come. 9 showed up. They kept having to pull out like these big, nice leather chairs because they kept coming in. Because, oh, Bart's here. We want to hear about the songwriters. We want to hear how we can help.
Mm-hmm.
And the entire trip, and it's not just because I didn't pay attention. I had no clue what party anyone was. They were all just pro songwriter.
It's awesome.
And that I was like, oh, and we went to dinner, and Jen and Bart kind of looked at each other because I was like, this is just like incredible. Bart's like, and this is why we wanted you to come. Because they know that it's hard to freak me out, but DC freaks me out.
Yeah.
It's a world I'm not familiar with. But being there and hearing all sides of it, just how Bart could get into any room he wanted to in DC because they want to hear about songwriters. And when you think about it, like they deal with a lot of stuff.
Right.
And sometimes as a songwriter, I'm like, there's a lot going on. What it's again back to that kind of echo of doubt where it's like the Speaker of the House is going on. Why on earth would they want to meet with songwriters? I didn't say that, but there was that mild thought. And then you get there and they're like, of course they want to meet with songwriters because this to them carries over in 1,000 different ways. And it's joy outside of just, we have to find a speaker. We have to do this. We have to solve all these problems. And the songwriters are going through a thing right now. And our needs are equally as important as others, not as some and a little more than others. But that's not worded well, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. I remember last year at 10 Pan South, there was the Nashville shooting. And the next day, I think we were doing coordinator training, and Bart said some people had asked, like, why wouldn't you cancel the rest of this? And he said, because music unifies. People need music for healing. And I think that's so true. And so that applies to this. Like, music is needed. Whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or this or that, whatever, there's just something about music that brings people together. I experienced this a few weeks ago. I did a small show, and our church is going through some things. Actually, a church split, and
Church drama.
yeah, it's
Take
been
me
really
back to my
it's been
Southern
really
Baptist
hard.
days.
Yeah, it's like going through a divorce, right? But
That's
I
hard.
had people come to the show that were involved on both. I hate saying sides because it's not about taking sides, but you know what I mean. But it was like, for just a minute, everybody was unified around music and laughter, and there's just something so healing about that.
And that's a great way to put it. I think in lieu of like the songwriter issues are equal to, less than, or more, it's people care about music because we're not going anywhere. It's honestly one of the professions that we want you to pay us for it, but we've proven that even if you don't, we're still going to do it.
Right.
Which, that is not songwriter advice. You need to be strong.
Disclaimer.
Disclaimer. But you know what I mean? And it is that unifying force. And every, it's like when we talked about the coordinators recently, genres. There's no more, in my opinion, like back in the Amish-ish days, which, I aspire to be Amish-ish. You lived in your small town. You knew those people. You knew what was offered to you on the radio station. You did not know that trop rock was a thing, or Tokyo rap, or any of this existed, because your exposure was within here. Now on our phones, we have exposure to everything. So it's hard to be non-influenced in genres by what you're hearing, seeing. And so when people are just like, I'm hardcore this, it's like, yeah, but that also like came from blues, right? And that also like hyper infused, and it's just collaborative now. I feel like genres, music in general, it's healing, it's helpful, it's unifying, and it's all going back into like the melting pot of just creative connection.
I love that.
That was a ramble. Sorry.
No, it's all good. All good. So talking about chapters, there's several chapters across the United States. There's chapters internationally. I want to talk for a second how those chapters benefit songwriters, and what can members gain from participating in local chapters.
So I had to explain it to my mom this way. She's like, what do you do? So
my mom asks me that all the time.
Yes.
What do you do?
So I compared it. I was like, Mom, it's like church. Like Nashville's the church. Your chapters are your small groups. Your coordinators are your Bible study leaders. Like that's kind of the, the family tree of it. And with our chapters, we have, there's about 2 coordinators per chapter, sometimes more. And it's NSAI at the local level. You are an extension of us. And our lesson plans that we go over, no matter what skill level, from just starting out to intermediate to I'm ready for a pub deal. We try to make sure that we have resources, and I know I keep saying like connection, but I think that's a huge part of it. So being able to outreach that to your local community, and like you've heard me say this, we want you to play out. We want you to host writers' nights, because more than likely there are a few people in your hometown that are like going to see a songwriter night and be like, well, just my cousin Tammy and my mom know I write songs, but this could be cool. And they're going to be quiet. They're going to sit in the back, and they're going to just like eat pretzels and drink a Dr. Pepper and kind of just observe. But then they're going to feel way less alone on the drive home and come back again. And it's not about numbers. It's not about anything like that. I kind of black out when we have those conversations because I'm like, what? I know it's important, but it's really just about that connection and pouring over from because I'm very passionate about this. You don't have to be in Nashville to make it. There's a million different ways you can make it as a songwriter. And it used to be like, I'm selling my farm, I'm moving to Nashville. If you want to sell your $500,000 farm, good on you. But make sure you see what it's going to get you here,
Right.
So, and just be resourceful with what you have, where you have. And, we just revamped a Des Moines, Iowa chapter. He does music full time, Andrew, the new coordinator there, and Madison's in school and really plugged in with her music community. So like they have a good thing going, and it's in the middle of Iowa. Who I personally wouldn't have thought that. I also sometimes have map blindness, and that's why I have one behind my computer at all times. But the chapters are there to help expand the creative community and connection. The coordinators help to guide, build, provide feedback, and to just further that mission.
Yeah, it's good. I love the way you explained that. That's a great word picture. The church, the small groups, the Bible study leaders. I love that. I'm going to steal that. Yeah.
You can steal it. I started a workshop with it one time because someone was like, what are chapters? And I was like, how many Southern Baptists we got? And everyone was like, where's this going? And I was like, maybe I should start differently.
Oops. So
start going into like every eye closed, every head bowed. Let's go.
Let's do it. That's awesome. So songwriting is competitive, right? It's a highly competitive field. What advice would you have for aspiring songwriters who are looking to stand out and make a name for themselves in the industry? Speaking of NSAI, whether a songwriter or artist, we need valuable resources, support, and opportunities to grow our craft. That's why the Nashville Songwriters Association International is here to help. NSAI is a global community of songwriters, musicians, and industry professionals dedicated to nurturing the art of business and songwriting. With a legacy spanning over 50 years, NSAI has become the go-to hub for songwriters seeking to enhance their skills and make meaningful connections in the industry. Through its comprehensive membership program, NSAI provides a wide range of benefits. As a member, you gain access to educational workshops, song feedback sessions, and networking events, both online and in person. Their experienced mentors and industry veterans offer valuable guidance and support, helping you refine your songwriting techniques and navigate the music business landscape. NSAI is committed to advocacy for songwriters. They actively work to protect intellectual property and champion fair compensation for creators. By joining NSAI, you become part of a community that fights for the rights and recognition of songwriters everywhere. And now I have the Beastie Boys in my head. Whether you're a beginner or a seasoned songwriter, NSAI has something to offer. Take advantage of this incredible opportunity to connect with fellow artists, learn from the best in the industry, and take your songwriting to new heights. To learn more about NSAI and become a member today, visit their website at nashvillesongwriters.com, and I will share the link to that in the show notes for you. And now, back to our interview. What advice would you have for aspiring songwriters who are looking to stand out and make a name for themselves in the industry?
My best, favorite, and most honest advice is so cheesy, but just freaking be yourself. Like, if you are wondering what the trends are, you're already behind. And
ooh, that's good.
I mean, honestly, because I'm tough love. I'm funny and kind, but I'm tough when it comes to just what the songwriters all have different goals. And I always say, before you provide feedback on a song, ask them what their goals are. Whether that's a pub deal, whether that's I want to connect with my grandson. Everyone's reason for writing songs are different. I had a coordinator the other day say, we had 2 people come that have never written a song. Like, how do we navigate that? Well, they kind of thought it was like, why would you come to a songwriting thing if you don't write? Well, I would love to learn how to jet ski. How am I going to do that unless I go in the water?
Right.
You know what I mean? And they're like, oh, that makes sense. It's like songwriting is a hobby for some. It's not, I want to be a teacher in the day, songwriter at night, so I can have a huge hit and quit being a teacher. It is that for some people, but everyone's dreams are different. And I just lost track of what the original question was.
Just what advice would you give for aspiring songwriters to stand out, to make a name for themselves.
Yeah, and to be themselves. It's my best friend Amy always says, we want people to give us us. That's why we connect to the music we connect to. We all like different things. Just like Doral cigarettes when your parents smoked growing up in the back of an Oldsmobile and you're coughing and thinking it's your allergies. Like, that is a connection that certain people are like, got it. That was me. I was in the Cutlass beside you. You know what I mean? Like, it's that commonality and that familiarity. So I always want songwriters to be themselves. If you write quirky, weird, punny songs, okay, don't not do that. It depends on your goal, and if you write Broadway songs, we have people of all combinations of dreams versus talent versus what they create.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the ones that do what's true to them.
Yeah.
And because it might not be the thing now, but in 4 years when the thing changes, they're going to need something.
Right.
They're going to discover something. So why not be you? But if you're staying true to yourself, then you have a catalog of music that you're automatically invested and proud of, and it represents who you are.
Yeah, that's great advice.
So do that, because no one else is going to do that.
Yeah. So, speaking of the Doral thing, so before we pushed record on this thing, no, it's all good. I just thought we might want to fill people in on that. We were talking about our parents smoking and what brand they smoked and how that affected your childhood. And I'm sorry you didn't get to hear that conversation because it was really good.
Yeah, the whole point of that one was you could tell that might start being like an interview question, because you could tell a lot about someone by which brand of cigarettes their parents smoked.
I love it. So funny.
That's what they'll take away from this. They'll be like, she said that it was a good interview, but she said this thing about cigarettes.
Right. Like, don't smoke. That's what we said. It's disgusting. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Keep your dare commitment.
Oh, shoot. I've totally lost my train of thought now. Where are we at? I love it. I told you that we were going to see so many squirrels in this interview. It's not even funny. Okay.
It happens.
So, as the director of chapters, what is your vision for the future for NSAI and the songwriting community that it serves?
My big scary dream, which is what I always ask others for the chapters, is I want to bring more of us to you. I want it to go on the road a little bit. I want there to be events, not just in Nashville, but in other locations that are like a Rise, but more accessible to those that can't travel here.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think as much as we preach connection, we should also be meeting that need and helping to facilitate it. I mean, the work we've put in the last 2 years with coordinators and training and creating a structure and a home plate so that you can best launch yourselves from, so that you can then help launch others towards the direction of what they want. So my goal for that is to I'm already seeing some like hints of it, of people being like, I don't know if we should do this writers round. I'm like, just try it. Just try it once, please.
Right.
And then them being like 70 people came out. And I'm like, okay. And even if 7 come, that's okay.
It's 7.
Like, the fact is like getting you a little out of your comfort zone, just to make sure that connection is out there. Yeah. And so I think my big dream for that is us coming to you and also continuing for you to do things that make you proud and to grow. Like just with Branson and Springfield, like you all were like, we're going to do it at 2 locations. Like, okay. Like, and I trust you. And I think also pouring into the coordinators to where they feel confident that they could make, I don't want to say upgrades. That's not, where they can elevate the minimum requirements to something that meets their people where they are and can kind of highlight those experiences, I think would be really cool too.
Yeah. Makes sense. Good stuff. So let's talk about co-writing for a second. Very common in the industry, right? So give us some insights on the importance of networking. And you've talked about building connections within NSAI, but talk about that a little bit, building those connections with other songwriters and professionals.
I think when it comes to co-writing, it's a double-sided coin. But if you are wanting commercial success, if you're wanting to get better, if you're wanting to grow, I think co-writing is huge. a huge asset to have. It gets you out of your comfort zone. It helps you meet people. It helps you I was going to say kick off with people, connect, but no, hit it off, kick it off.
You're so close.
Yeah. All around it. Helps you kick it off with people. And from that, from a professional standpoint, because I was super uncomfortable co-writing because I was,
yeah.
Believe it or not, I used to be really hesitant on saying things. I was like, I'm going to sound dumb, until my friend and hit songwriter, Jay Knowles, was like, can you just say what you're thinking? Because you just dare to suck, because you could have something cool that I could take away from that. And so dare to suck. And dare to sound stupid. Those were like his things. It was like, it's okay. It'll either work or it won't. And, if you don't say it though, we can't launch from it and we can't create from it. But from the professional side of things, if you have a publishing deal and I have a publishing deal at different places and we collaborate, we write a great song, we demo it. That's 2 budgets going into it. That's also 2 pluggers, 2 publishing teams, 2 ways to kind of get that ball rolling, which that was kind of a strategic structure. And then as far as not being a published writer and doing it independently, co-writing is good because you, one, don't feel alone. And, we like to be invited to the party. That doesn't mean we always want to go.
Right.
But being with other writers that you can write with and share ideas with and share their struggle with, of just like, hey man, my goal is this and it is not happening, or I feel like I'm spinning wheels. It's also good for that. And you can write from that because it's authentically what you're living in.
Yeah.
So I think those are the 2 benefits of it. The one pickle of co-writing, I find that you can get really comfortable with it. And it's just, I found that co-writing after co-writing, and I was doing a ton of it, which I loved because I was meeting a lot of people and writing a lot of great songs, a lot of bad songs, figuring out who I wanted to write with again and hey, it's so good to see you.
Yes, I'm breaking up with you. Yes.
Yeah, I would never say it. I would just be like, that was so fun.
Yeah.
The thing is, I was co-writing so much that to this day, people will come up to me. They'll know this now because they'll listen to the podcast, if they listen to the podcast, which they will because you're awesome. But they'll be like, man, that song we wrote still stays in my head. I'm like, send it to me. Sundi, Joe. If a coordinator turned the song in, I would have no idea I was on it. Because I was just writing so much, I didn't,
Yeah.
So getting into the habit of it and never writing alone, as a writer and a creative, I think that can sometimes hinder your growth as your small business owner self.
Right.
You don't want to just depend on vendors to help you make your dream work. You also want to know that you can do everything to keep the lights on.
Yeah, that's good. I think we do have to find that balance. I mean, and I'm preaching that to myself because it is so easy to get into co-writing. Also, another benefit, I think, is you figure out what your strengths are, and you team up with those people who have, so my strengths are more lyrics than melody. I can play guitar, but there's somebody that can play way better and create a better melody than I can, so that I can focus on the lyrics. But then, I can team up with a track guy that's going to save me $300 on a demo. So it's also about finding those people who are going to, what's the words I'm looking for?
They complement your strengths and weaknesses.
Thank you.
And I mean, 100%. And 2, that was kind of in full transparency, like my last publishing deal, as someone who's not an artist, as someone who doesn't do tracks, I write, and we've talked about this, but I mute play guitar. That was another Jay Knowles thing and Lisa Carver thing. They're like, you hear the melody, you just don't know the chords. Just mute play it, get it out. And that was a huge fear I had. And now I can't really write without mute playing. I like to do it, but it's just like a comfort security blanket. But when dang it, what did you just say?
Oh gosh. Oh, I was talking about
I know we're talking about co-writing.
I was talking about complimenting one each other, like with your strengths and.
Oh, yes. Okay. Back around. So as someone who just, and I don't like to say just, but as someone who solely writes, I don't have artist thing, any of that. From a publisher in my business mind, well, I can't live off my royalties alone. And my draw, which is your salary as a songwriter, which is technically a loan. The sustainability in my head financially, I was breaking down to like being cool in my 20s and living in a houseboat and living off 24 grand before taxes and things like that. It wasn't as cool.
Right.
Because you're thinking of like, like stability might be cool, but then that's boring. So what do I do with that? How do I write, so it's that conundrum of just like, you're as a creative, you're either destined for extreme poverty or extreme wealth.
Right.
And I was just like, yeah. And
how do I adult and write songs and all the things? Yeah.
Right. And then also as you're like looking at streaming and royalty rates of that, and financially it just wasn't clicking all the buttons.
Yeah.
And so having to look at it as your talent as a business is really hard, because even if I had 10 number one songs in the next 2 years, financially, how far would that take me?
Right. Yeah.
And so like having to look at the logistics of it is really disenchanting.
Yeah. But but it's necessary. We have to look at it like a business. We are entrepreneurs. We are. Johnny Dwinell was just talking about this in the Climb podcast a few weeks ago. I'll link to the episode of that in the show notes, but he was talking about that. You are the business owner. You are the CEO. You are the accountant. You are you have to look at it from that perspective. And I want to buy a new sectional, but I'm like calculating that in my head. I'm like, well, how many demos is that? Do I really want to do that? No, my couch is fine. It's comfortable.
Right. And it really makes you reprioritize. And it's just one of those, like like the coolest artists and the things like that, they have a natural gravity towards self-sabotaging, or just like, it's that thing of, ooh, I'm happy right now. I'm stable right now. I paid all my bills.
Creative thing, I think.
It's like, when's the shoe going to fall? Like when am I going to need all new tires? Things like that I just, from that aspect, and I did have track friends, and from the business mentality of it too, when it came down to signing me or signing someone who was a track person, could write all genres, like even if they had the same exact talent I had, but they were able to do tracks, or they were an artist, or they just had one of those other bright, shiny things, it would have bumped me. And I knew that. Mm-hmm. And so that's, again, where like the creative versus business, because I get it and there's no shame in it.
Right.
But if I was doing a budget and I had to look at it and be like, well, we could sign 2 brand new artists for the price of her, which is not a lot, but we could do it. I mean, I would sign the 2 artists.
Right.
I would cry like a freaking baby, but yeah, I would do it.
Right. Well, you're right. But that's the business side of it.
I know. I would be terrible at like the Big Brother reality shows, because I just love so transparently. I'm like, oh god.
Yeah. That's funny.
I just realized the natural light is coming in, and it is like shape shifting my face.
We should start a songwriting reality show, like where we all have to live in this house together, and that could be really exciting and dramatic all at the same time.
And have our lives taped when people to find out what people are. 7 strangers pick to live in a house. What is it? And have
the real world.
Right, but I used to know the spiel so well, and now I'm like,
yeah, I don't remember. I haven't watched it in a long time. Mm-mm. Oh, that's funny. Okay, one last question. What do you see as the most exciting developments or trends in the world of songwriting today, and how is NSAI adapting to those changes?
That's a great question.
Thank you.
What I'm seeing today and how is NSAI adapting? I'm seeing a lot of... Hold on. I have to think of the way to word this.
Okay.
There are no rules anymore for what you have to look like as an artist, what you have to sound like. That, in my opinion, the rules are off the table. So we are seeing a surge in authenticity and artists being themselves and singing what they want to sing and saying how they want to say it, because you have all of these different facets on how to showcase that and get discovered. It's no longer just hitting the ground running. You can do a million things. So I think there's this surge and just really cool, from like Oliver Anthony to, I just went blank on her name. She's pop. She's adorable. Lisa's going to punch me because she's great with names and I'm not. But those like
names. So don't ask me for help.
But we're just seeing a surge in that.
Yeah.
And I think where NSAI is adapting is kind of where we've always been, as far as wanting you to be the best version of you. And like, I am pretty hard on people that are like, I really want to sound like this person. Okay, are you influenced by them, or are you just trying to do what they do? Because they already do it.
Mm-hmm.
So like, either bring a side dish that adds something to this dinner, or just enjoy it and go home. Like, don't just try to mimic. That was a bad analogy, but I mean, can there really be two bad side dishes of mac and cheese? Probably not.
Probably not.
But I think, especially from the last 2 years of being here and the membership team and seeing everyone that has member meetings and how we're connecting people and seeing the kind of confidence and like, I can just do what I'm doing. Yeah. And if you want to do it better or grow in it, let's connect you with some people, meet some people on your own, go to these shows, try that podcast, try these things. So seeing just like the launch of authentic artists and music, and again, people starting to cut outside songs again. That hasn't been around for a while.
Right.
And so I think that's a little bit less discouraging when artists are like, I just want to cut great songs again. When Ben Vaughn said that in a Music Row article recently, he said, I just want great songs to get cut again, whether the artist wrote them or not. It wasn't a huge popular opinion at the time, but man, how that tide shifts, and so now people are like, and original music is the thing.
Which is great for us.
Yeah, which is great for us, because that's the other thing too, as someone who's not really an artist. My mom loves my songs and I have a catalog of them, but like, where's the longevity of that?
Right.
And it's a really cool time in music. It can be scary because of all of the AI craziness. But as far as authentic artistry and song craftsmanship, it's really cool to see what people are doing, how creative they're being, how like someone like you who multiple genres, you can write funny, you can write serious, you can write CCM, you can write full on hymn. You're doing a podcast, you have a hilarious alter ego. You're doing those things because you're good at them and you're using what God gave you and using it, and how that all comes together. We don't ever know. We don't know how it's all going to happen. I love what I'm doing now. I would like to do it for many years.
Yeah.
But it's just, I think and it probably goes with anything, as long as you're true to yourself. And I really am proud to be a part of NSAI, where we support that, and not only support it, but help you do it to the best of your ability and help you navigate it in a way that aligns with the end goal.
Love that. Anything else you want to add?
I don't have a weird face. Literally, I don't know if it's how it's showing, but it's just like, because the sun.
So you can watch this on YouTube, by the way, too, if you'd like.
Well, that's fun. I'm just going to sip my coffee from this new NSAI coordinator mug that these came in yesterday. This is how much I can't keep joyful secrets. I'm like,
I'm excited about them. Yeah, I'm excited about them. Okay, so before we go, I want to have a little bit of fun. Are you up for some rapid fire?
Yeah. Did you not have fun for the other 40 minutes? Or
I did. I just wanted to add a little bit more fun. No, this is fun. I knew we were going to have fun because
I get nervous about rapid fire. I love it, but I also get nervous because I have no filter, and I will literally, I will say exactly what I think.
It's okay. They're not bad questions. Okay. Or are they? All right, you ready? Here we go.
I'm here now.
Favorite songwriting tool, pen and paper or digital?
Digital, because I can get it out faster.
Okay. The most memorable songwriting session you've witnessed.
Mine or someone else's?
It's your answer.
Of mine, when I wrote with Lisa Carver for the first time, because I had a hook book and I had an idea written down in it, and her being like one of my dream co-writers, who is now one of my very best friends, I was very nervous, like did not sleep the night before. I don't even know if she knows this, but we go in and I'm like, oh, so excited to write. How are you feeling today? Like trying to play it cool, knowing I have 17 like Carver ideas. And she's like, do you know what I've been wanting to write with you? And I was like, what? And the idea she said was called Tickets, and it was in my top picks for her. And so it's still one of my favorite songs, but it kind of flowed out really nicely. And it was one where like you write with someone you dream of writing with, and I like held my end of the bargain. It wasn't like I felt like I actually contributed, and I wasn't just like timid or whatever. So
Love that.
It was really cool.
I know this is rapid fire, but I'm interrupting it anyway. You mentioned hook book. So this is my hook book, and it says, "Do not stop me." Is that not the coolest thing ever? I knew you would love that because you're the queen of puns.
I do.
Okay, anyway, if you could co-write with any songwriter, living or deceased, who would it be?
I know it's rapid fire, but now like I'm flooded with people. Probably John Prine.
Ooh, love it. Okay. Coffee or tea to kickstart your creative process?
Coffee.
Boom. The last song that gave you goosebumps? Ooh, I feel like we need suspenseful music here.
Hold on, because I just listened to it. Oh no. Hold on. T-Pain. So T-Pain did a cover album. On top of the covers.
Uh-huh.
And his version of sorry, I have to look it up because I'm going to butcher the name of it.
Say on top. He did cover songs called On Top of the Covers. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, I love that.
And it is incredible, and I want him to do it at Super Bowl party next year, or Super Bowl halftime. I want him to do it because he covered every genre. And hold on, I gotta look it up now because it's going to drive me crazy. I'm sorry, I know it's rapid fire. Speaking of
the Super Bowl, I mean, Usher was killer. I'm just saying, it was pretty awesome. I went back to high school all over again.
I mean, didn't we all? Like, it was just... And Alicia coming out, and you can't have her. You can't have Usher without her. So I mean, it was just amazing. It was so good.
Yeah, amazing.
Hold on. The whole T-Pain thing is good, but I want to nail this down as the one that gave me the goosebumps because that was the original question, and this is the longest rapid fire, and I apologize.
It's cool.
See, look, on top of the covers.
Oh my gosh, how creative!
Stay with me.
Okay.
It's like the whole thing. He does Don't Stop Believin'. He does Tennessee Whiskey. But the Stay With Me, every song sounds like his take on it. But he was very complimentary to the OG artist that did it. I'm really
going to listen to it as soon as this interview is done. I'm excited about it. Okay, you ready? 2 more questions. What's the weirdest? Okay, what's the weirdest place that you've ever gotten songwriting inspiration from?
Oh, God. Throwing up behind a dumpster in Key West.
Oh, my God. I love it. I should hear more about that story later. All right. Last but not least, if you were to write a true crime inspired song, this is just for you, my true crime friends. If you were to write a true crime inspired song, what would the title be?
Well, let me take a stab at it.
Boom!
Oh, that's a good one. This is going to haunt me because all day long, you're just going to get text messages of my random crime
titles. I look forward to it.
It's definitely one of those moments where you're like, I should have said this. But, okay, so take a stab at it. Crime. Side note, squirrel, the Warren Brothers Tim McGraw cut one that That's All Between the River and Me.
Yeah.
It was really good. You should
Okay.
check that one out.
Write it down.
But if I was to have one, I don't know, it'd probably be like an ode to Keith Morrison.
We should write that. That would be so fun.
And it's just like instrumental, but all in like the same key as his like narration voice.
He's the best. He's the best ever. The best. He can never quit.
No, it's his voice. Like I probably wasn't into crime until like his voice just calms me.
Right. And now he reads like Christmas stories, like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And I'm like, I can never listen to it the same again.
I want him to do like my devotionals, like my morning devotionals, instead of turning on Dateline. If he could just be like, Leviticus.
Hey, if Snoop Dogg can read the audio Bible, I think he could get away with it. I think we should start a petition or something.
Keith, we know you're busy, but if you could perhaps do a women's devotional, that would be great. But also Snoop Dogg does the kids' affirmation album.
Really? I didn't know that.
Oh yeah.
It's
a full thing, and it's very cute.
Oh, I love it. Well, I don't even know what else to say. We've seen so many squirrels today. This has been awesome. Thanks for hanging out with me and hanging out with us and sharing all the things.
Well, thanks for letting me ramble, and I hope I landed some of the...
You totally did. Totally did. So you can learn more about NSAI at NashvilleSongwriters.com, and I'll share the link to that in the show notes for sure.
Yeah, and thank you for all that you do, especially with the coordinators and especially with me coming on board. And you were very instrumental in helping me figure out what was helpful and best and fun. So you've been greatly supportive, not just for your local chapter in NSAI, but for me and my role as well. So
you make it pretty
greatly appreciated.
You make it pretty easy.
Well, thanks. And I can't wait to randomly text you all of the crime titles I think of after this, which I will immediately be putting in the comments, all the good ones.
I will be waiting for it. Well, my friend, I hope you had as much fun as I did hanging out with Amanda. Told you were going to love her. She did not disappoint. And if you are not a member of NSAI yet, here's my question. What in the world are you waiting for? And if there's not a chapter close to you, hey, maybe it's time to start one. And if you're in the Southern Missouri Ozarks area, we would love to have you join the Southern Missouri chapter. Just go to NashvilleSongwriters.com. You can learn more, and also I'll share the link in the show notes for you. And also, don't miss out on the exciting lineup of events that NSAI hosts. The Tin Pan South, the Nashville Songwriters Awards, the RISE program, the Inside the Industry with Liz Rose. There's so much that they are offering to songwriters like yourself. I've personally been to Tin Pan South, been to the Songwriter Awards, just recently went through the RISE program. They're all amazing programs. NSAI is truly invested in helping songwriters become successful, and we wouldn't be able to chase our dreams like we are without them. That is it for today, my friend. Don't forget to tell others about the Songwriting Chronicles. It means a lot.
Thanks for listening to my Aunt Esther's podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and share it with your friends. And remember this, keep writing, keep dreaming, and keep pushing forward because your words matter.